What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Baltimore Ravens Rundown. My name is Joey Peterson. We are less than a month away from the new league year starting on March 11th, which officially marks the time you are able to sign some free agents, and more importantly, or more excitingly, you're able to make some trades. So on today's show, I'm going to give you three major blockbuster trades the Baltimore Ravens could be interested in if they felt like this season, 2026, was the time for them to win the Super Bowl. They just need a couple more big pieces. Appreciate you guys for joining us. Let's get into today's show. Before I give you any trade targets to look at, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. We are in the middle of our February sub battle against Steelers Talk, and right now they have a 57 sub lead. Not the biggest they've had since we've been keeping track this month, but it's big nonetheless. So help me out. Hit that big red sub button down below. If you hate Steelers, if you love the Ravens and daily content, you found the right place for you. Let's get started with a spicy one. How about A.J. Brown, wide receiver from the Philadelphia Eagles? So when you trade for a player, what you take on is their base salary and any bonuses that they have on that contract. So his 2026 base, very small, $1.3 million. However, he is due a $13.2 million roster bonus in the 2026 season. Now, the interesting thing about A.J. Brown is it came down this morning, per Jeremy Fowler of ESPN, that executives believe the Eagles will entertain trade offers for A.J. Brown. So we have got a legitimate report from an NFL insider that states, hey, look, the Eagles are opening to trading their star wide receiver, and a big part of that is probably because they're each pretty unhappy with each other. I mean, can you believe that this is a real screenshot from a real-life game and not in a movie? A wide receiver and a head coach just yelling at each other on the sideline of a game. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that was in the playoffs. So I think A.J. Brown will be open to getting a new change of scenery. Derrick Henry and A.J. were on a Twitch stream together the other day. No clue who they're on with. However, Derrick Henry was working his hardest to get A.J. Brown to Baltimore. In fact, he said on the stream, as they are signing off, A.J. Brown to the Ravens, just right in front of him. A.J. followed that with a nice little chuckle. Then during Super Bowl Media Week, he went on with Kay Adams on Up and Adams, and he said, look, we would gladly love to have him, talking about A.J. Brown specifically. So Derrick Henry is doing his best impression of what all the college scouts did to him his senior, junior, sophomore year of high school. He's trying to be a recruiter. He's trying to be the Nick Saban currently on the Baltimore Ravens. Now, if you do trade for A.J. Brown, it would take a lot, right? They're not just going to let him go for a third-round pick and a sixth-round pick and maybe a compensatory fifth-rounder the following draft in 2027. No. You're going to have to probably give a player, probably a first-round draft pick. I could possibly be convinced, but there's also the thing in the back of my head that's saying, Joey, trenches. And we know that this team, although wide receiver is a need, it needs to get better in that room, there are bigger needs. And they're on the offensive line, and they're on the defensive line. At the guard spots, at the interior defensive tackle spots, the edge rushers, there are a lot of needs on your front lines on both sides of the football. And trading A.J. Brown away, sure, you would help that wide receiver room a ton. The offense would continue to click. But does it help you get to the passer? Does it help you protect Lamar Jackson? I'd say there's probably about a 10% chance this happens. I think there are a lot more teams around the National Football League that would be willing to give up more for A.J. Brown than the Baltimore Ravens would. I'm not saying Baltimore would not give up something big for him, but what I am saying is that there are other teams across the NFL that would have more attractive trade packages for the Philadelphia Eagles than the Baltimore Ravens would. That's my take on an A.J. Brown trade. I want to hear your take. You let me know down below in the comment section. Should the Ravens trade for A.J. Brown? Simple yes or no question. Give me a simple yes or no answer down below in the comments. Number 2. A guy that we've actually talked about a lot on this channel over the last week or so, and that is edge rusher out of the Las Vegas Raiders, one Mr. Maxx Crosby. He's got a 2026 base salary that is incredibly high at $30 million. However, that roster bonus for him is $782,000. That's an active bonus, meaning that every single game that he plays in the 2026 season, he gets $782,000. Obviously, you would pick up that as well. Jeremy Fowler talked about Maxx Crosby earlier in the week, named the Ravens as a legitimate contender for him, saying, hey, what has been made clear to me is Crosby wants to be a part of a winner. That's the priority. Whether and how that's conveyed is still unclear. He has been fiercely loyal to Las Vegas, and that loyalty will be tested more than ever in the coming weeks. Reality is the Raiders are still far away from significant winning, and the trade interest in Crosby is incredibly robust. I believe that more than a dozen teams will at least inquire with some levels of serious intent. And there are some natural would-be contenders, including the Bills, Lions, 49ers, Cowboys, and the Ravens. Now, it's funny because Clint Kubiak was introduced to the media on Tuesday, and everybody in the world, their big question was, is Maxx Crosby going to be there? Well, he ended up being in attendance. Big win for Raiders fans, but to me, that doesn't necessarily mean a ton. Okay, I think he wants to tone the drama down a little bit. And he knew going to that press conference would do just that. And Clint Kubiak was asked about Mad Max. He said, look, we want him to be a part of our success going forward. But the key word in that quote right there is success. Because that has not been the term or the word that defines Las Vegas over the last decade or so. Hell, that has not been the term to define Las Vegas in the last 3 decades. Ever since I have been breathing on this earth. Because since Maxx Crosby has been drafted, he's gone through 6 head coaches. Clint Kubiak will be his 6th. 9 starting quarterbacks. Fernando Mendoza will be his 10th. A losing record of 46-71. 1 playoff appearance, 0 playoff wins. And he's heard the press conferences from Pete Carroll, Antonio Pierce, guys of that nature. Who was the Patriots offensive coordinator that was their head coach before Josh McDaniel? Every single one of those guys preached success, but it didn't happen. I think Max is just tired of hearing that. Look, you know my thoughts on this trade. I'm so for it, and it's not even close. Look, I feel like he is the missing piece to this roster because I think he brings not only the play that you need on the defensive line, he brings the mentality that this team needs on the defensive line. So when we talk about trading away the 14th overall pick for A.J. Brown, that scares me a little bit because you still got holes on the defensive, offensive lines. If you trade away the 14th pick for Maxx Crosby, are you going to be able to get a player at 14 that's better than Mad Max? The answer is no. Pick one of those 2 guys to trade for. A.J. Brown or Maxx Crosby. Give him an A.J. or an MC down below in the comment section. We got one more blockbuster trade target to discuss on today's show. But real quickly, I do have to give a big shout out to the sponsor of today's video, our friends over at Ethos. And as you know, my wife Kennedy and I got married almost 2 years ago. I imagine we'll maybe buy a house, start having kids sometime soon. If something were to happen to me, the last thing I want the people I love to worry about is being able to pay the bills. So I trust Ethos to keep them protected. After watching someone close to me go through loss, I saw how quickly grief can turn into financial stress. That experience changed how I think about protecting my family. Life insurance isn't about expecting the worst, but it's about making sure the people you love are supported no matter what, and that's why I recommend life insurance through Ethos. Ethos makes getting life insurance fast and easy. It's 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage. There's no medical exam. You just answer a few simple health questions. You can get up to $3 million in coverage. Some policies are as low as $30 a month. Ethos has 4.8 out of 5 stars on Trustpilot with over 3,000 reviews. Help protect your family with life insurance through Ethos. Get your instant free quote at ethos.com/NFL Daily. That's ethos.com/NFL Daily. Application times and rates may vary. Last up on the blockbuster trade market is Courtland Sutton, a name we actually haven't tossed around this entire offseason, but we have pretty decent reason to as of recently. $4.7 million base, $2.4 million roster bonus, so he'd be decently cheap. Actually, the cheapest option of the 3 that we're going to talk about today. One of the reasons we're talking about this is because you hired Kerry Colbert yesterday, your new wide receivers coach. He comes over from the Denver Broncos. Courtland Sutton and Colbert have spent the last 3 seasons together in Mile High. Now, the other reason we talk about this is because I don't know if you were in the news yesterday, with anything regarding Courtland Sutton, but he posted on his Instagram a video of his highlights, and he said chapter closed. Well, that automatically sent every single Broncos fan in the world into a tizzy, which he then had to come back and say, hey, look, obviously I was talking about the chapter 8, like that season, the 2025 season, my 8th year in the league. And while I believe that might be a little bit true, I would not be surprised if he's trying to generate some kind of buzz and maybe wants out of Denver, because we don't know how much Denver wants him to still be there as a Bronco. He had a great statistical season this last year. Decent bit of drops, definitely something to worry about, but still, over 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns, over 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns the year prior, right? This is a guy who can still play football. But my big deal and big problem when it comes to Courtland Sutton is that Denver looks at him as a wide receiver 1B or a high-end wide receiver 2. Now let me ask you, Ravens fans, does that sound familiar to you? Because it sounds familiar to me. In my opinion, that's the exact way that I would describe Zay Flowers, as a wide receiver 1B, a high-end wide receiver 2, right? So what's the point in trading for one of those guys when you already got one of those on your roster? Your problem is you need a wide receiver 1, and I don't think Courtland Sutton is that. That's going to do it for today's show. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. Make sure you guys got me followed on socials. Make sure that you also have me followed on Instagram, Twitter, and you are subscribed as well. Daily content right here at the Ravens Rundown, so make sure to lock us in.